Hello everyone, my name is Miller and welcome to a Season Max video, the series where I go more in depth on the most important cars of the season, giving some facts, showing some great details in AR, and providing a view on the max performance of each of the cars with the Stage 5 tune for the Prestige car, which might help you with the Prestige Cup. As you saw in the thumbnail, I will be covering 3 cars today: the Aston Martin DBX, the Maserati GranTurismo MC Stradale with a Liberty Walk kit, and the Porsche 935, which is the reward of the Hypercar Forum. Timestamps for each can be found down below if you want to skip to a certain part. Before I start, 2 disclaimers. I'm not the best one out there in terms of shifting the cars, so if a record exists, I try to be within 10,000ths of a second. If there is no tune available, I try to set a certain benchmark. And secondly, I want to thank Natural Motion for providing me the cars and the items on my separate to dummy account to make this video possible. To start off, the 5th SUV now in tier 4. The Aston Martin DBX, which will perfectly fit with the Lamborghini Urus and the Bentley Bentayga as a luxurious sports car SUV, but being a tad less powerful. Powered by an AMG 4-liter turbocharged V8, putting out 542 horsepower, it goes from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 4.5 seconds. But what surprises me here is that we cannot see the engine as the boot does not open, and in AR there is just nothing in there. This is something we're not really used to see from Natural Motion, but this could be because of the current COVID situation, to where photo shoots of the engine could not happen, or maybe any other reason too. I do believe that in the future the engine bay will be filled up. But on the design, it really is an Aston Martin product, with the iconic by now Aston Martin grille and the kind of cute headlights. But there is one thing on the design that I really don't understand, and that is the ducktail they attached to the end of it. I do understand slightly the origin of it, as it's the same philosophy on the Vantage and slightly on the DBS Superleggera, but like this I don't think I've seen anything before. In some way it kind of breaks the flow of the design, as it could have been one of the best looking SUVs out there. The 3 other ones which come to mind and are still missing in game are the Maserati Levante Trofeo, the Jaguar F-Pace SVR, and maybe even the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio Racing Edition. Poll on top and let me know which one of these 3 you would like to see, or would you rather say enough tier 4 SUVs? I really want to see the F-Pace though, that thing is gorgeous. Back to this car now, onto some of the details on the milestone spec you see here. And one of my favorites has to be the vents at the front having the ring lights around it. Going to the side we see the great rim design, which is only limited to the milestone spec, and I would take this any day over the season price. Moving to the back then we see the rear bumper, which is made out of carbon fiber, with some DBS inspired design holes around the exhaust. Something quite special about this car, and my favorite bit, can be found on the inside of the doors. First off, when opening the doors you can see that the doors are slightly tilted to give a cleaner look. But for them to be allowed to open up in such a way, there are pistons hidden inside the door. Look at the details that went into that. It's crazy, and only a small percentage of the people will actually get to know this. The interior is nothing too crazy, it just screams luxury, but that is it. This is in-game definitely a future prestige car, and knowing Aston Martin, we can already predict there will be loads of colors available with plenty of different specs. Performance-wise, it slots in nicely between the other SUVs, falling half a tenth behind the Urus for now, but faster than the Bentayga and the Grand Cherokee. So the only other SUV is the Juke 2.0, which is miles ahead. I ran at my best attempt in 11.64, but I expect that to drop to maybe in 11.61 or 62 at some point. Tune and pattern. Next up, the prestige car, the Maserati GranTurismo MC Stradale with the Liberty Walk body kit. And in case you would forget by who this is made, no worries, you can find the Maserati badge on 5 places on the exterior of the car. But basically this is just a GranTurismo Stradale sport line we already have in game, with a special Liberty Walk body kit, which makes this car just look that much more badass. The engine and interior are both the same as the other version, because it really comes down to an exterior change, which in real life would actually set you back $16,000, not including the rims. So people who have been playing for a couple of seasons now might remember it recently returned as a prestige car, so potentially some of us still have some parts laying around for it. The non-Liberty Walk version is not applicable for the event, and the Liberty Walk version is still on a drop rate, and there are multiple specs to obtain, becoming a great collector's car. There isn't really much to say about this car as for facts and details, as it really just comes down to it being a kit, and for some reason I absolutely love the exhaust placement. Performance wise it is faster than the stock version, though not by much, so I think once the cup is done, many will just end up collecting dust. Max tune and pattern. For the stage 5 tune I will use my main account, and boy I was so happy when I saw this roll in my garage, because I wanted this pack so much and it took me 27 tries. I'm usually not a person that likes to go for a complete blacked out car, but on this it just looks so right and stealthy. With the Prestige Cup having a rather glitched final time, it can actually beat the Cup fully fused on stage 5, but only when finding a good final opponent like this one, or one of the other two tier 3 custom cars which somehow ended up in the final race. Maybe this trick can also be applied for the previous races, not confirmed. Anyways, tune, which I got from Thomas Bolton and his mate, and a pattern. The final car then for today, and the best looking one in my eyes, the resurrection of Moby Dick with the Porsche 935 Martini Racing. A model based on a 991 GT2 RS, it finally came almost 2 years after its release, which happened, coincidentally, during the finale of the 70th anniversary event we had in game. What makes this so special is the fact that only 77 models are made, and I was lucky enough to see 3 being tossed around Spa-Francorchamps last year racing each other. It was crazy to see how they were pushing those cars. The 935 has a great heritage and had a great success in motorsport history. Being introduced for the first time in 1976 with the aim on Group 5, it was so successful with its various iterations on various events such as Le Mans, Sebring, Daytona, etc. It won 123 of the 370 races it entered, causing the FIA to change the rules to stop that success. But the most famous version has to be the 935-78. Not specifically for its success, but more for its long tail design and the name it got, Moby Dick. The long tail design allowed it to go to insane speeds at Le Mans, reaching 367 km per hour or 228 miles per hour, passing the prototypes back in the 70s and 80s, while they were only on Group 5. The design style was copied with the new 935, where the back end is slightly extended to allow air to come off cleaner from the back and avoiding drag in the process. This car on its own is an absolute beauty, and I'm glad to have it in the game too. And there are some amazing details all around. Starting with the rims and tires. What you see here is not only the slick racing tires, and I think the first one to be in game to have those, but also red covers reminiscent of the original 935. But when this car is delivered in real life, it actually comes with a different set of rims, which are meant for only transportation purposes. And possibly they have hooks installed on the wheel nuts, so you're able to lift this car if needed. If we go up, then we can see the naked carbon fiber vents with the special RSR 911 side view mirrors. This car can be bought basically with entire black naked carbon fiber, or you can choose between 5 liveries. Before going to the interior, let's see the roof first. What you see here is a special roof hatch, which is basically an escape door in case you're not able to open up the side doors due to a crash. When moving to the other side then, we see a couple of caps and bits on the panel behind the window. The blue point you see here is a connection point for an air compressor. This will activate the jacking system, allowing the car to be lifted off the ground to change your tires, for example by a pit crew. Next to that, a cap, which is only for distilled water. This is so that water can be sprayed from time to time on hot components to avoid overheating when you're racing around on your hot lap. But where do you put the fuel then? Well, that is on the front, just behind to where the Martini logo should have been. And this is the weird thing. Despite being called Martini Racing, there's no actual Martini logo to be found, and I'm talking about the drink. On the original car there are two places where you can find the original Martini logo. Here on the hood, but also on the back. Though if you pay close attention to the Martini Racing logo, you can see that the Martini badge on the bottom is actually taken away. When we drop down below the long tail, we see a big chunk of carbon fiber, forming the rear end of a GT2 RS, with a bigger diffuser and a crazy exhaust, which is a tribute to those of a Porsche 908. And there are a couple of rats holding the diffuser and the body together, because it's just that big. There's one final thing I would like to mention here, and that is the rear lights, and those are hidden away in the end plates of the rear spoiler. If you make it dark in AR, they turn on. These lights in real life also have a double function as blinkers. But now the craziest bit of the car, the interior, and this is one of the maddest things I've seen in games so far. When opening the door, you can already see how they cut the weight to the extreme, basically making the doors almost hollow. The car comes as a single-seat race car with the latest generation Sparco bucket seat, but basically everything else around it is even crazier. Look at all those details and all that work that went into it. This is all too much to go into detail about their functionalities, but it could not get as bare bones as you see it here. There are two details though which I absolutely love. The nuts hanging around the driver being fully detailed, and then the shifter. This is equipped with the same GT2 RS based PDK system, but what makes it so special is the wood finish on top of the shifter. So all that work to reduce the weight, and to make it bare bone as possible, to then have a wooden shifter being completely out of place. Below that you have the headlight switch, which you can find in basically any other Porsche, but now it's placed on the middle console. The dashboard then, what you see here is an actual race display, and it's absolutely crazy if you go into the detail. But now, why did it take so long for this car to come into CSR Racing 2? Well, it's because this isn't Porsche's choice, but the Porsche racing department. Whenever we see Porsche race cars in games, it is almost in every case only track-based releases. Seeing the car list of Forza Motorsport 7 and comparing it to Forza Horizon 4, we don't see any of the race versions in Horizon because it's open world and not track-based. So they basically had to convince them to move from that idea and to allow it into a street racing game like we have, and Natural Motion succeeded doing so. As for performance, this is a great car, but not the fastest. On the update release, it was the fastest shortly and the first to break into the 6.8, but in the end it got a nerf to a high 6.9, with my best attempt stranding me on a 6.994. The needle drop is a must to get the most out of it. Tune and pattern. And that is it again for today. All that should have been said has been said. If you enjoyed the video, do not hesitate to leave a like, subscribe for more content like this. My name is Miller, see you around, and keep racing.